Thursday. Hey, it is another Thursday. And we're halfway through March. This is March 14th. And so not only is it Thursday, it's 314 or Pi Day. And so we will pay homage to the nice folks at Raspberry Pi today and other things. Hey, I am Dave Rush, and this is ADRAMADA, another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything, digital alchemy. Come for the shirt, stay for the news and the project, or in today's case, for the guest host or guests. Maybe they can host, I don't care. I'm going to do this opener a little quickly because I got two guys joining us from a company called SNAJU and a company called Dartnode and other company names in there somewhere. And we're going to kill as much time, spend as much time as we can with them. So let me slip through this. They're going to be on in about 15 minutes or so. They're going to join the show about quarter after. Beg your pardon. There we go. I'm drinking Dr. Pepper today, which is important. Hey, Dr. Pepper, if you didn't know, it is a Texas guy. He was a doctor who was trying to create a cough syrup, and he named it after himself. And this is it. And so we're testing to see if his cough syrup works. I just dropped a bunch of stuff that I have to share with you. Hang on. Well, okay, there it is. I'll be able to reach that. Anyway, so let's get moving. It was a tough choice on shirts today. SNAJU supports space contractors and NASA directly and indirectly. And so it was a choice between a NASA shirt and Raspberry Pi shirt. And I thought about it. I said, well, you know what? NASA is here and is doing something every day, but there's only one Pi Day each year. So the Pi shirt won, but had to have a NASA cup. How's that? That's from Columbia Mission Control. So let's see. This is Thursday, March 14th, better known as Pi Day. We are in daylight savings time. We switched over this past weekend. So depending on where you are in the world, the show is an hour different than what it was a week ago, depending on, again, where you are and if your location and when your location participates in a daylight savings time. Other upcoming noteworthy dates this Sunday, March 17th, is St. Patrick's Day. Oddly enough, the U.S. seems to be the biggest supporters of this day. Today is noteworthy because I'm going to give you a couple newsies in history, just because there's a piece of trivia that I know that when it comes up in conversation, it's the one thing that I have to say about it. 1794, Eli Whitney patents the cotton gin machine, revolutionizing. I had it right. Cotton industry. My bit of trivia on that. I wondered one day why it's called the cotton gin. The gin, short for engine. 1899, German Ferdinand von Zeppelin receives a U.S. patent for a navigable balloon. And 2018, NASA twin study finds that Scott Kelly who was up in ISS for a year, is no longer identical to his twin brother after a year in space. 7% of his genes have been altered. That's huge. So, eep, op, orc, let's see, just a couple quickies on this. We've got a Discord server. Hit it. It's in the link. If you want to get in contact with me, that's a good way to do it. Otherwise, you want to email me. Here's a couple email links in the chat feed, and they're cooking there. Last week was open topic because the week was just so insanely busy, and it's reflected in my viewer numbers. I will avoid open topics in the future. This past Saturday, Scott and I attended, and I DJ'd Michael Smyer's wedding, and I passed along to him your greetings and well wishes. He is truly appreciative. Thanks you all very much. It was a lovely ceremony, a fun reception. We had a really good time. All right, so today show, we are going to do quick tech news and then devote the rest of the show talking with Zack, president of SNAJU, and Patrick. I got that whole Patrick thing in my head. I called one of them Patrick for an entire meeting one time and nobody bothered to correct me. Anyway, it's Zack and Adam, one of the managers over at SNAJU. And oh man, they are just so fun. Yeah, I can just barely see the chat feed under there. How we doing here, Zack Peterson? So upcoming shows next week, still don't know if there's going to be a show. Week after that, 2 topics. We got a project, globbing, and we have guest Laura Tate. The week after that, April 4th, I came up with a show that I sort of careened into in the last day or so, and I need your help. We're going to talk about snake oil technology marketed to ostensibly consumers, though I suppose they'll market it to anybody. Tinfoil hat technology. So if you got ideas, if you run into anything that's weird, that's bogus, that people are trying to sell because it cures everything or protects you from everything or whatever other weird techie stuff, let me know by email or on the Discord server. That would be great. April 11th, a normal show. I don't know what the project's going to be. April 18th, special guest Greg Soul from Rocky. So all the news this week, except one that I just picked up at the end of today's prep, is about space and Raspberry Pi. So let me share my screen. This, by the way, is SNAJU's homepage, SNAJU.com, SNAJU Development. And they will explain just exactly what's going on in, there you go, their world. Okay, Raspberry Pi's in space. We're going to talk about single board computers on the ISS and in space. So that was kind of my inspiration to do some of this stuff. NASA has published guidelines. Let's see. Oh, that's AstroPi. That's over here. Okay, this is AstroPi. The nice folks at Raspberry Pi did some extensive testing and modifications a couple of years ago to send a pair of Raspis to the International Space Station. And they were used in contests for student coders and experiments to have their code and experiments run in space. There's an annual contest to do this. Another one is currently going on for submissions. And since that time, of course, Raspberry Pis have been updated and upgraded. You can see these ones in the pictures. These are the older ones. They have Sense hats in them. They've since sent updated models, Raspberry 4s with more RAM. So cool stuff. All right, then Raspberry Pis in space. So Raspberry and other single board computers are really useful whenever possible, whenever practical, to include in satellites and on the ISS because of their computing power and because of their small size, which kind of makes sense, right? So NASA published some guidelines for including, they were very specific about this, Raspberry Pis in spacecraft to deal primarily with radiation reliability. And also the guidelines also address a term called SWAP, size, weight, and power issues. And if you want to look up NASA guidelines, Raspberry Pi, you'll find that. Oh, heck, I got it right here. NASA guidelines for Raspberry Pi in space. Let's put it in the chat. Did I get it all? Yeah, I got it all. Gas packs. I love NASA namings. This is a gas packs satellite. Getaway special passive attitude control satellite. Okay, you get that? It's a passive attitude control CubeSat, and it uses Raspberry Pi as its flight controller. Gas pack is a tiny sat. It's 4 inches a side, 10 centimeters per side. And the primary mission of this particular one was to test the deployment of an experimental meter-long inflatable boom, and also to find out whether the boom works as intended to help satellite stabilize itself. So CubeSat, this one went up in January of 22. And of course, they don't stay up there very long. Yeah, V'gers. They use a Raspberry Pi Zero W, a wireless in there with a camera module, because they were getting visual telemetry on the results of what they did, not just electronic telemetry. Yeah, why not? I'll throw that link in. I know you guys got lots to say in the chat feed. I will get there momentarily. How about a compute module on a satellite? In theory, any Pi can be used as an effective tool in a satellite and many other single board computers. But the CM4, mine came in this week, and I was bowled over. All the pictures that I've seen make it look like about half or 2/3 the size of a full-blown Ras Pi. Au contraire, mon frère. I don't know if you can see me in here, but look at the size of this thing. It's barely over an inch high and maybe 2 inches wide. So these are just fantastic. You do those on a custom carrier board that exposes only the connectors that you need, the ports that you need, and these things are just light and they're powerful and they got plenty of RAM. So good stuff. How about you are earthbound, but you want to play in the space race? Well, this is for people who have more money than sense. They built a model of the ISS with a dozen motors in there that can move the ISS attitude and solar panels to mimic whatever the ISS is doing. There's telemetry coming down. It's freely accessible telemetry. So they pull that stream of data that comes down, feed it to this tabletop, and it moves and it tilts and it rotates and it extends and moves solar panels. It's called Mimic, ISS Mimic. It's a 1% scale model. It's a 1% scale model. That's just so cool. Here's the link for that. It's pretty cool. There's video of it. All right. Is that everything? No, there's one more thing here. Speedometer 3.0 was released in the last, I think, 3 days or so, maybe 2 days. Speedometer is a browser benchmark tool. And let me get the link up that for you. I'm not going to detail all this. We're short on time. Check it out. Run your browser against it. You just use your browser. You go to the site, you hit the start test, and it takes 2-3 minutes for the test to complete. And it will come up with some kind of value at the end. And then you can try that with other browsers and try it on your other computers. Let me share this one part with you. It does 580 tests. So all kinds of different things that you will encounter on websites, drawing and input and output and OpenGL and blah, 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 blah. And then it generates this number. They don't explain anywhere in the documentation that I could find how to interpret this number, but I ran it on 2 browsers on my slowest, worstest computer here in front of me. Brave came up with a rating of 3.95. Edge on the same computer, 2.93, and it does seem bigger numbers are better, because as I explored some of the forums that were interested in this thing and people were posting their values, everybody's values was in the teens, mid-teens to high 20s. So I'm running this on a dog of a machine. It's because I have literally almost 200 tabs open, and it sucks up so much RAM. There's about 5 or 6 gigs of RAM taken up by all that stuff. Last piece of news. Did I do a slide for this? Let's find out. I don't think I did. Oh, okay. There's the what the results look like on speedometer. Okay, last piece of news. Raspberry Pi OS just updated to the current long-term support kernel in Bookworm. They're using kernel 6.6 LTS. Adds a lot of cool features, including a lot of ARM support features. All right, enough of that. Let's get out of here. Stop sharing. Let me see where we're at here. 15. Give me a second to say hi to whatever you guys have been posting. And then about that time, we will be joined by Zach and Adam. There's no Patrick. Beware the Ides of March tomorrow. Yeah. I know somebody's going to send me happy Pi Day, Scott. Hello, Shia. Shia Moonstone. Happy Pi Day. Thank you for the pink waves. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the staff of SNAJU. You shall not pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame, the flame of Uden. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass. Very nice. Michael and Kayla, happily married. That was so fun. Scott, everybody left. We threw everybody out for the send-off and left Michael and Kayla in there for their last dance. And I have worked hundreds of weddings, and this one was so weird. The photographer did not stay and photograph the last dance at the reception. Fortunately, I was there playing music for him, so I whipped out Uncle Phone and shot a few. I emailed them to him yesterday. He's honeymooning, and I'm sure he won't see them till he gets back in town, but that was all weird. Photographer bails. A fine Cossack dance by all means. Yes, there was a fire pole. This was done at a wedding venue in town that used to be a fire station, and the venue is called Station 3. There's a fire pole in there, and they have it roped off. VJR News, drop the link. Okay, thank you. There's a link over in Discord from Tullowit. I'm one of the few who loved the first Star Trek movie. I loved it then. I just don't think it hung in well. Jason Helms in the living. Welcome, Jason. Hey, Scott, how's it going? This is a sweet last dance. It was. Yeah. I'll shoot you a picture. Hey, well, guys, if you are amongst us, why don't you flip on some cameras and hey, here they come. Adam, first up.
Hello there.
And Zach. And hello, Adam. Hello, Zach. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great. How are you?
It's Thursday. I woke up alive. I can't ask for much more.
Right. I'm with you there. 100%.
Good hat, Zach. I'm liking it.
Oh, thank you.
Got the newsboy thing going. They used to call those pork pie hats.
Yeah.
And nobody uses that term anymore. And I guess I shouldn't.
Yeah, Zach's keeping it stylish, so.
Oh, here, I got to do this real fast. So everybody, I don't know if you noticed, you can't, but this is a new hat. It's not brand new, it's used, but I am retiring the old one. That's not it. This is the old one. And you can't see it very well in this light, but this is blue. My replacement is the black one that I have been pining for. I bought a pile of 3 hats, 2 Greek fishermen, one's gray wool, and the other one is not a Greek fisherman's hat. It's a chauffeur's cap. I don't know if I'm going to use that for anything, but I am selling the other 2 caps, and I'll sign them if you want.
Zach, if you wanted to add to your fledgling collection.
Okay. I don't have that many hats, actually.
I didn't envision you would buy one, but the
even
audience
more
at
reason
large.
to get one. Even more reason to get one, Zach. If you don't have a hat collection, why not?
You
Why
guys,
not start?
if you said you would wear them, I would gift them to you.
Well, maybe we could work something out.
Oh man, you have given me a very nice gift. I think we've got recipients. You don't have to wear them, but you have to hang them in the office at least. They're not as
fair.
cool as I told a little bit about my tour down at your place a couple of weeks ago, and about the things you let me touch.
Oh yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
Still, Well,
I'm still amazed by it every time. And
oh, how can you not be? Well, look,
right,
let's get right into it. Let's start with Zack Peterson and Adam. I never tried to pronounce it. Wagenfeld.
close, Weidenfeld, but that J throws almost everybody off.
You know, it threw me off too. There we go. So why don't you guys introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about SNAJU?
Okay. So yeah, my name's Zack Peterson. I'm the president of SNAJU. We actually started back in 2011. I actually founded the company with my father, and we started to get into web hosting. Then we actually migrated and became one of the first hosting companies for a little bitty game back then called Minecraft.
Oh,
We grew that to about 30,000 customers worldwide. We maintained a network of about 700 to 800 bare metal machines around the world. We
wow.
ended up actually getting out of the Minecraft hosting industry when we sold that side of the business. And then we sort of got into custom software. And ever since 2018, we've actually been doing custom software on orbit on board the ISS. So we have currently right now, I think, 4 facilities on orbit that are using software that we wrote. And we also have a payload going to the moon on board the Firefly lander coming next year. So the software is going to be landing down on the moon and taking some pictures. And yeah, then we actually, I've known Adam for a very, very long time. I mean, we it's sort of funny. We grew up like playing games online together, Minecraft, GTA, you name it, Arma 2, Arma 3. We were part of a lot of actually like GTA, like San Andreas roleplay communities. We were always into gaming, server hosting, tinkering with networks. So about what, Adam, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, I think it
Um,
was like November of last year.
Yeah, November of last year, we actually launched Dartnode. Wrong side. I was watching my camera. So we actually launched Dartnode, which is a cloud hosting provider. We actually started down that road because we wanted to find a way to save money because we were spending a whole lot of money in cloud, and we were like, oh well, we used to host. Let's go look at it again. We actually figured out that we could save money, and then we're like, oh well, we could just pass this along to other people that are having the same problem, that are dealing with high cloud bills and are looking for ways to save money. So yeah, that's me, and it's yours, Adam.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Adam. I've known Zach for a very long time. We actually worked together at SNAJU a long time ago. I think it was back in like 2011, 2012. And I also owned a hosting company for a little while, for a few years back then. And I mean, the internet it's crazy to think because it wasn't all that long ago. At least to us, it feels that way. In reality, we are talking over a decade. But the internet has changed quite a bit since our first go around, and especially with the explosion of cloud and networking, and even just the capability of these little microcomputers like the Pi. I've always been a tinkerer of that regard as well. I remember getting one of the original Pis and trying to use it as a hobby project to build a little infotainment system in my car at the time, back before every car was a screen slapped to a dashboard. So I remember, we still had the CD disc, and I basically I got a cheap screen off of Amazon, and I was finding a way to put it on the dashboard and then have it run by a Pi with some ancillary stuff connected to it as well, and you had a little mini keyboard that also acted like a mouse, and I mean it was very clunky, but it was a lot of fun to set up, and I guess that's really a lot of the fun for me. And so through the years, I'm really happy I got to get back with Zach and return back into networking. I was working for Tesla. Around the time of the Model 3 launch. So it was definitely the early days. It was very hectic, but I was able to learn a lot there and work with some great people. And I'm just so happy that I keep getting great opportunities. And I'm really excited what we've been doing with Zach with Dartnode. And I guess that's something we'll get into a little bit more as we go on.
That's awesome. Some of your history here that you shared, I didn't already know. But one of the things that excites me is Scott Jernigan is watching us, an old co-worker and a former boss of mine. And he has always been impressed and used as a story about how one industry moves to another, drives another. So you guys as gamers, having translated that into space coding is just a beautiful example of that. That's wonderful. I'm not going to let this one go, gamers and ISPing, and I'll let go the cross connect stuff right now. But we got to at least bring Riven World into the mix.
Yep.
Talk about Riven World.
Okay. So Riven World, actually, so at our company, we do this thing called Fun Friday. We sort of did it to sort of break free of like the everyday stuff. So we actually have in our office, I think you saw it. We used to call it the stupid idea board, but then we realized all stupid ideas are good ideas. So the whole concept is people put on the board just ideas that we have, and things that we want to work on that we don't work on every day. And one of them was a game. And since we're all sort of gamers, we were like, oh, let's take a stab at making a game. So we actually threw together Riven World. I think we only worked on it for about 6 months or so, and it was on the side. And it's using Unreal Engine 5. The whole thing's actually developed in Blueprints, so the UE Blueprint system. And we actually, this is funny enough, a lot of the software that we wrote for the space industry is reused in the Riven World dedicated server. So the multiplayer environment, we actually took experience from Minecraft and then from the space industry and sort of squished it together. So instead of using Unreal Engine's multiplayer system, we actually wrote our own using Java. So you can actually host your own Riven World server. And if you had the Hinkling to, you could, it's all open source. We open source the whole server suite. So you can rip it apart, you can destroy it, you can modify it, you can change even how the game operates.
You are my hero. I am a huge proponent of all things FOSS. So yeah. I downloaded and played the demo version of it. I was supposed to last weekend get the live one going, and I'm too busy, but it will happen in the next 2 weeks. I start traveling here in the next couple of days, and it's just not, I'm not even taking a laptop on this trip, but guys, it's available on Steam. Ladies, it's available on Steam. Do check it out. Okay, well, can Earthbound products go into, oh yeah, okay. So I saw your lab. You guys don't just ship code up there. You make things that go up there, including electronics. And we had this conversation without being product specific or anything like that. Lessons learned about sending commercial consumer electronics in space. Could I take, if they let me have an unlimited wait and 10 days on the ISS, could I take my motherboard up or my computer and it works fine?
So it depends. So technically NASA has rules about the capacitors. So you actually can't use electrolytic capacitors. They explode. So once you get into vacuum of space, even like on the ride going up, electrolytic capacitors will explode and cause discharge.
Wow.
So they do make you replace them with solid form capacitors.
Interesting.
And they also, I mean, it really depends because it's really cool. The radiation environment is definitely something to look at while you're up there. Like we've had, events to where like even a single rad hit, so a radiation hit to the board will flip a bit, and then the OS will restart, data will get lost, things will corrupt. So everything's pretty redundant. And I will say that there are Beaglebones in space. They're actually in the external side of the ISS. So you can they're in the vacuum of space, and you just replace the capacitors and some other things, and
Wow, that's so cool. Disappointing for me that it's not pies, but I like bones too, so it's all cool. Any particular model, do you know, or is it across the board?
It's a Beaglebone Black.
They use blacks, okay. That's awesome. So, and they're used for what, since they're outside, do they control ISS features or are they for outside experiments, things like that?
Yeah, it's for an outside experiment. It's for a commercial payload, and basically, the Beaglebones run their whole system. There's a cluster of, I think there's 38 Beaglebones on board on this
Wow.
system, so they all talk to each other and yeah, do its thing.
That is too cool. This was just an FYI. We were talking about a network upgrade switching to fiber. They run Ethernet copper on the ISS, and so I called my buddy who he doesn't personally run, but he's with the company that runs that. And I said, "Hey, what's going on with fiber and an upgrade?" He said, "Nothing in flight. The ground stuff is getting all the fiber updates."
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't realized this. I kind of envisioned totally wrongly and stupidly that as ISS orbits, it downlinks to different sites as it goes. I
Yep.
could not have been more wrong and more stupid. It's all done by a satellite of Tidris geostats. Okay, so there's a lot less hopping and changing than what my mind envisioned, and that makes a heck of a lot more sense. So what they're doing is the downlink sites for the Tidris satellites, they've got copper connects and they are upgrading all of those to fiber connects back to NASA.
Yeah.
Starting with White Sands. Can't wait to get him back on too. Man, you guys, can I get you guys all on together? Gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so
have to.
where this show came from was a lot of folks who were studying to achieve certifications to get into IT roles. I need my A+ certification and my Network Plus and my Sec Plus and various other and sundry ones. I've met your staff. Is that an important thing in your organization, or from what you see with peer organizations, or what are the credentials?
For sure.
Good.
That's definitely a very good question. And the short answer is it can be beneficial. So the way it works generally in the industry that we're in is certain contracts might require certain certifications. So then depending on how the company is structuring certain projects, they might require a certain percentage or certain teams to have staff that's qualified. And that might be, all the way from the basic A+ level all the way up through, depending on, which side you're talking about. So we see a lot of like CCNA. On the cybersecurity side, you might see, like Security Plus or things of that sort.
Same thing that my buddy works for a Boeing subsid, had to have Net Plus and or CCNA.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. And that's really where it'll depend on the company that you're working for, because companies that don't necessarily have a requirement and you have experience, you might be able to, there's some people that have been in the industry for a while and had these certifications and didn't keep them current just because their current role doesn't really require it. But at the same time, it's more of whether you could pass the exams and whether you hold the knowledge versus actually having the certificate. So it's really just a way to let whatever company's looking at you, whether it's a recruiter or someone in HR or even just an automated screen, right? It's a way for you to establish that, okay, I at least know the basics to be able to pass this exam. And if you don't have relevant experience that it might screen for or someone might screen for, then it's a good way to differentiate yourself. I will say though, it seems to be there are a lot of entry level holders of certificates. On the entry level, I mean, it might get your foot in the door, but oftentimes it still does mean, starting at a help desk. So I know oftentimes that's like the traditional approach to IT. I think if someone's trying to get into IT, trying to get that practical experience is super important. So if you could get your foot in the door with certs, without certs, you really just start applying, see what sticks, go to interviews, just see it as a way of improving yourself and getting better. Self-learning is key. if you can't afford the certifications or something if that's a barrier, there's lots of free YouTube videos. Of course, great channels like your channel to help you with lots of different things. So there's so much information. That's one of the beautiful things
I
about
put
the
the
internet
check in the
today.
mail this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Of course, I received it. Must have been you must have picked the expensive shipping. So. Uh, it worked out. But no, and that's a great question. And anyone who's passionate and wants to enter the industry, I think that ultimately you'll find your way. It's just you got to keep at it and be persistent. That's the number one key. And you're going to fail. Everyone messes up. You'll see giant outages across huge networks, and that's because someone pushed the wrong button. So even people who have been doing it for decades, aren't exempt from making mistakes. So we're all human, right? And we're only as good as our weakest day. So it's a natural point of progression. So just stick with it and keep applying, and eventually you'll get to where you want to go, and you won't even remember the pain once you've been doing it for 5, 10 years.
That's awesome. Thank you. Mimics almost everything that I've ever told anybody. And I hadn't thought about the fact that we all make some kind of colossal mistake. 4 years ago, just before the COVID shutdowns, there was this news blurb about a huge company where some goober went to the root and did a pseudo RM minus RF and completely wiped out the whole. Turns out that was a something of a fake report, but it had the whole industry buzzing about what we should do about security and permissions and access and who. And so useful because things like that do happen, to be sure. I have a question here that I should have asked on one of the 2 tours that you gave me, but I was so overwhelmed. And it's the hosting site, your cloud site. What are the OSs that are running the VPSs in there? Is that anything, or you guys fixed on a particular? That's not what I want to ask. Go ahead.
So yeah,
tell me a little bit about the.
So we actually all our hypervisors. So the host nodes actually use CentOS 7. So we're still running CentOS 7. And we run a KVM core, so you can put a Windows VM or Ubuntu or whatever you want on top of that. But yeah, we typically stick solely with Linux for all of our stuff. We're all Linux people, so it just comes naturally. Now, if someone wanted a Windows server, then we have experience with that too. We can rack and stack whatever can fit inside the rack. So
I'll pass on the $149 license. Keep me playing Linux
Right.
boss.
Right.
Oh yeah, your servers have what, 190 cores, something like that?
Yeah, so each host node, Adam, I can't remember, I think it's 92 cores.
Okay. Yeah, 92 cores on those host nodes, and then we have various different pieces of hardware that we have now where we keep accumulating all different types. So it's cool. You'll see little baby servers next to huge servers, and sometimes the little baby servers work harder than the big ones. So it's sizes and everything. Oftentimes it really just depends on what the application is, and we found that sometimes the smaller servers perform better in certain tasks than what you would think if you wanted to go shell out on the big super processor heavy big boy with a ton of RAM. If you're only using 25% of it, by application limit or software limit, whatever the case might be, you want that 25% that's being used to be as quick and efficient as possible, rather than just looking at the overall system. So, with tech, it's a pretty common theme. You really have to pick the right tools for the mission you're trying to achieve, and that's the number one thing. Some people just choose their mission based on the hardware. And I know a lot of times it's kind of the itch, when you're trying to play with a new piece of a new toy or something, and you want to find a use case for it. But ultimately, there's definitely things, even just on a server level, that are better suited to certain configurations.
So here's a totally off track, a question related to this then. So CentOS 7 reaches end of life in about 130 days or something like that. It's the 3 big competitors and replacement people are pushing their replacement products.
Yeah.
I guess that's a corporate strategy, so I'm not going to ask you to expose it, but offline, love to talk to you about it. That would be
Okay.
kind of cool.
No,
Good.
and I'll just add on, like, as we progress, and as like other OSs show like part of the Red Hat branch, so like Rocky Linux or Alma Linux, any of those, we're sort of, the way that we're configuring our host nodes is actually the drives to where all our customers' data is stored is separate from the OS, so we can just pop a new OS in.
Very nice. And that makes sense. If somebody wanted to purchase a VPS from you, they wouldn't go to SNAJU, they go to Dart node.
Yes. Yeah, they'd go to the Dart node. We have VPSs starting at $2 a month. It gets
Yikes.
you, what was it, Adam? 1 gig of RAM.
Yep. 1 gig of
and
RAM, one vCPU. You get 10 gigs of drive space, and you get a gig of port speed, and it's unmetered. So we're not going to cut you off or throttle you or do anything crazy. Of course, we do have a fair use agreement just to make sure we can't be doing any kind of copyright infringement, things like that. So sorry if someone wanted to run a seed box for a torrent. We can't do that because we're going to get in trouble, and then when we get in trouble, sadly that gets passed along to you guys. But for any safe, fun applications, we always have something, and that's one of the main missions we tried to get across. So part of the reason we did this and kind of made a return to the consumer market is we wanted to pass along some of the great infrastructure that we were able to build out of Houston here. And it has a lot of built-in redundancies, and uptime is very critical for us, and low latency, and having multiple upstreams, and power redundancy, and all the things you would want if you wanted a server hosted somewhere else than your closet at home. And we just didn't want people to have to pay an arm and a leg for it, or going back to kind of give you we're going aside a little bit, but we'll go back to young Adam purchasing a VPS on a budget. And well, I went into the VPS, and this was back before I was familiar with the command line. I think I was like 14 years old or something. This was a while back, and I remember I asked their live chat for a GUI, and they assured me that it was Linux with a GUI. Well, I SSH in, I don't know what I'm doing, and well, first of all, I'm having trouble connecting. It takes like 45 seconds to a minute to connect. And it's just, there's no GUI. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to follow tutorials back then of how to set up Apache, because I wanted to host like a basic site and just play around with it and figure it out. Because I was just using like reseller hosting plans up until that point to like just host my own websites for certain game stuff I was doing. And I ended up pinging the servers and looking at a map and trying to figure out where these servers were. And they were like super North Canada. And
Awesome.
it was like really remote. And I remember I was on the live chat, and I was like, what's the location of your servers? Because they had claimed a different location, and they were like, oh, they're in North America. And I was like, how far north? This is it was really the network speed, I think, was like 10 meg.
Wow.
And this was at a time where they were advertising 100, and 100 was considered pretty good at the time. Now everyone expects gigabit, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but times have definitely changed.
Yeah. No, and definitely, like with the VPSs, going back to like the certificates and getting experience in IT, if anyone ever wants to play in Linux, VPSs are a great way to do it, because if you nuke the OS, you just reinstall it.
Exactly.
And you don't have to go shove a thumbstick, or you don't have to call the data center, or you don't have to go sit there and try to finagle a system to come back alive. We actually custom built our control panel, so it's all built from scratch. So basically, you can load an ISO, you can mount it, you can do basically anything you do from the comfort of like a Pi or a Beaglebone sitting on your desktop with the VPS. Also, on the IT side of things, if anyone's ever interested in BGP or Border Gateway Protocol, we actually offer free peering. So you can peer with us and play with Border Gateway Protocol to your heart's desire.
Wow. So you just went down a road that I was going to drag you guys into. So at the site you're at, you are a cross connector, and you provide peering. And
yes,
I was wrong. I got into a deep multi-week argument with some of my coworkers one time about the cost of peering. And I thought, well, surely the IRS has to get their hands in this. There is monetary value in peering, and you guys are going to tell everybody what peering is. And so there's got to be at least some value ascribed to this so that the nice folks at the Fed government can get their piece. I couldn't be more wrong, right? So tell us a little bit about peering and what that means and how that works for you.
Okay, so Dartnode or SNAJU, it's technically SNAJU, operates an ASN, so it's an autonomous system number. We are allocated that from ARIN, so the American Registry of Internet Numbers, and basically that makes us a network operator, and we can establish peering relationships with different ISPs and other ASNs. So BGP is basically the protocol that makes the internet move. It's how networks talk to each other. So if Adam's on a Verizon circuit right now, it's a Verizon network, and I'm on AT&T or whatever, for us to communicate, technically, we have to go through what's called peering. And as all these ASNs begin to peer, that's actually the fabric of the internet. So SNAJU is right up there technically, at the technical level with AT&T, Verizon, Google, AWS. So we peer currently with what was Adam, like 3 or 4 T1 providers, and we actually do that through our internet
That's
exchange
tier 1,
point.
everybody, not T1 like a T1 line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically, we peer and exchange traffic. We own the IP addresses, or we lease them, but we own a lot of IP addresses. So we own the IP addresses, IPv4 and IPv6.
Nice.
And we peer on both of the networks. So we offer IPv4 and IPv6 connectivity. And I think we peer with almost, through our peers, it's sort of cool. As the more you peer with more peers, the more connected the network becomes. And that's actually what the internet is. It's just a ton of peers.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. That is really cool. All right. I skipped over some questions thinking that they were going to be too long, and now I got to go back up and see here. What do you guys got going on that you might want to talk about? What do you want the world to know about Dartnode and SNAJU that we have? Oh, wait a minute. SNAJU. I know how you got its name, but not everybody else does. I kept that one under my hat. Tell us.
Okay, so yeah, I'll answer that one, then I'll let Adam take the next one about what we got going and cooking.
Okay.
So SNAJU actually stands for Systems Normal All Jacked Up. It's a play of snafu. Unfortunately, when we created the company, me and my dad, snafu.com was not available. So snaju.com was the next available domain name, so we bought it. And yeah.
That is just cool. I love pronouncing it, and I had a lot of fun writing up promotions this week because, as I said and explained it to, I'm talking with the SNAJU folks this week to my family, and somebody said Gesundheit. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
That's funny.
I'm checking for messages and posts here. You're getting a lot of love. Scott says that's awesome, Zachary. I think we were talking way back. Oh yeah, about the genesis of moving from game dev and game playing to encoding to what SNAJU has become. So yes, these are the Riven World guys. Hey guys, there's stories about that. If you read the reviews on the first releases, before I get Adam into hardware and upcomings, this is worth sharing in my mind. What happened with the first release? You got some cruddy reviews. What can you tell us about that? And obviously it's long fixed.
Yeah. No, so we released the game. It was a side project, and we released it. We're like, we're going to put it out there, and we never released anything like that. I think we went through 4 beta rounds, an alpha round, open beta, closed beta. We were trying to get testing done. Every time we attempted to do testing, because we never have a big following for games, like developing games. So every time we put out a beta, we had 3, 4, 5 people participate, and the servers are like, oh wow, this is great. And then we released it, and it trended on Steam for all of probably a few hours, and we got slammed with, I think it was 5,000 players when we first launched, and we just weren't prepared for it. Like, we were like, oh my god, it's, we're not ready. So, me, Adam, like, everyone's sitting there spinning servers up, like trying to get it, all set up. And this is when before we were a hosting company again. So we were running servers and, trying to get the data center to rack them faster. And so it was turbulent for about a week, and it was a lot of 24-hour days of me and everyone else just sitting here writing code, fixing things, putting patches out. And
so your beta was basically the actual product release before you could do real honest to goodness crowd testing.
Yeah. And during all that, like, a lot of the community members, were very considerate of that because they were following us up until then. But I think a lot of the people on Steam expected it to be like a AAA release, and they didn't realize that we were 4 people. SNAJU is only 4 people. We only have 4 people, so
incredible.
We were drowning for that first week.
Well, I'm glad it came up. The reviews are definitely better. It's good stuff. Guys, give it a try. At least give that demo version a try. It's $10 for a life. So cough up $10. It's worth it. Helps the guys out too. Adam, what do you got coming up what are you excited about? What's coming up?
Oh man, I'm excited about a lot. It's kind of hard where to start. So some stuff that we're working on is constantly just adding more to what we can offer. So we've actually got quite a few requests on some more game ready servers. So, NVMe, nice, Ryzen processors and DDR5 RAM and the whole shebang. So typically, those are more like computer type parts, but there's been a big trend lately. And I have a sneaking suspicion it might be because certain game devs might develop their networking on like PCs rather than having access to servers that they could test on. So it seems like the industry has found, and a lot of gamers have found, and through our preliminary testing, it seems to back up as well, that like computer-based processors, like from a gaming computer, might perform better for certain games than you might be able to run on a dedicated, a ton of core, ton of RAM server. So it's, again, that kind of goes back to that efficiency and picking the right hardware for the mission. So we're experimenting with putting some nice modern Ryzen processors into a rack mount chassis, and doing some testing and seeing how it performs for a bunch of different use cases. And something that we might also do, and something we have planned for at least a few things, is kind of sharing our experiments out with everyone else. So we're planning on recording some videos on certain tests, stress testing certain setups, and maybe even doing some comparisons, just so you could get some ideas on how things perform for certain applications, and we can kind of create a pretty good controlled environment to really see what the differences are. So we're always interested in things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, we nerd out over that on the phone all the time, and we're sitting there running things and kind of seeing how things respond. So the more we could share with everyone else, whether they're part of the Dartnode family or not, the better, especially for a lot of people that want to run home labs, and sometimes you can't find information, and especially if some people are getting into like some older data center recycled machines for their home labs that you could get pretty cheap, and you want to know how it might perform. We can do a lot of different levels of testing and kind of share with everyone else. But that's one of the big things that we've been working on. We have some other interesting things going on with private networks, but we can't speak too much about that this time. But if we come back another time, we could definitely, hopefully, share some more about some of the things we've been working in that regard and where we've gotten.
Oh, absolutely. And, keep me in the loop. If there's anything that you need public participation, I will get the word out to my network, and we'll do everything we can for you. Have you guys played with the online gaming environments where the video is rendered on the server side?
We haven't. I do know that that's a big trend right now. to where basically they, I think, Adam, I just sent you a link for one of those servers earlier today because
Yeah.
we were just browsing. It's a server and it has 24 GPUs in it. It's a 6U server, 24 GPUs. It has 6 processors and a terabyte of RAM. And I mean, we know what it would take to do that. Now, I don't think that we'd ever get into that because GPUs are just way too pricey for our blood.
Mm.
But no, I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it's
uh,
definitely really cool.
with GPUs and really this is becoming big with the rise of AI and this has been an ongoing thing with crypto. And you're seeing this pop up. A lot of articles, I'm sure, have been popping up about this. Is there's a real, um, I guess, challenge at a lot of data centers with cooling and the amount of cooling you have to have at a rack level to run just one of these servers. So it really impacts rack density. It definitely the hot aisle behind a GPU server is definitely lives up to its name. So there's a lot of challenges, and there's actually some interesting companies that are working on some solutions like liquid cooling at a rack level, which is really interesting. So I'm interested to see how they develop their prototype. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting things because they're basically there's been a consensus amongst one part of the industry that they don't believe that air cooling will be enough for these AI servers. It won't be efficient enough.
Right.
So it depends. I mean, I don't know personally. I'm not as smart as some of these guys that are developing this, nor do I have the experience with AI servers like they do.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the industry reacts to that. But that's definitely a big concern that I know a lot of data centers are currently thinking about and going through.
I told this story last week about a man I met from Iceland a week ago or so at this conference. And he was there pretty much representing the nation of Iceland, saying, come and locate your data centers here because they have these two amazing benefits. One, of course, the entire nation is steam powered.
Right.
So there's no fuel cost, there's infrastructure, but no fuel. And then, second of all, they're placing these expat data centers in the far north
Right.
where it's already freaking cool.
Yeah.
And so they just have to do a little bit of augmented cooling. So there's a heck of an idea there. The problem is they don't have enough pipes coming into the island.
Right.
So that was kind of what they were there. They were there to beg for more pipes, and you can't do that without just a cash outlay or without demand. So they were trying to
Right.
come to these HPC providers and said, look, do your HPC in data centers here, and that will cause AT&T and L3 and whatever to start dropping more fiber into our country.
Yeah.
Yep, that's definitely something we've seen. You really, oftentimes, once you get that ball rolling, it's interesting what can happen as a result. So,
Hey, well, guys, we are coming up on the end of it. I could do this for 3 days with you because there are so many things we haven't even touched. These guys are interested in knock operations, and you showed me a little bit of it, and I have more questions, but we'll do that another time. Maybe come back like once a quarter or so. Give us an update if you'd be so interested. Bring some Beaglebones.
sure.
Oh, I got to ask this last one. I'm going to run over time, but it's worth it. You run at least one Beaglebone as part of your internal infrastructure. Can you tell us about that guy? I'm thinking of the three pretty lights.
Oh, yes. So we actually one of our employees, Renee, actually, so he's a mechatronics engineer by trade, and he's done robotics in the space arena, all sorts of things, designed PCBs, done electrical engineering. So when we started doing Dartnode and we started the knock, he was like, you know what? We're going to put a traffic light on our wall, and this traffic light is the all-seeing God of the Dartnode network. So basically, that traffic light changes for if there is tickets in the queue to if there is a new order. It does a little dance for us. And if the light ever starts blinging red, and it actually has a buzzer, and it's very annoying. So if the network ever has issues, high latency, whatever, then the traffic light is basically our first audible and visual alert that something's going wrong.
So that's really cool. So you run a Zabbix system. When
Yeah.
Zabbix generates an alarm or a situation, it sends a signal to the Beaglebone, which in turn turns on lights and sirens according to the level of problem.
Yeah, yeah, and we
That's just
actually just to tack onto that, like our whole infrastructure is basically open source. Like we're not the developer of it, but we use open source for probably 99.9% of all of our stuff.
doing my heart good. All right, well, let me check these last messages and then we'll close things down. Stick around for a couple seconds after the show on the Zoom channel, and we'll close things up after that. Tulowitz says when he was 14, he had an Apple IIe. I'm so sorry, Tulowitz. Shame on you. Voyager 1 is suspected to have had the dreaded cosmic bit flip in a recent story. I saw the failure mode. I hadn't seen that as a cause. So that's good. Do you guys know anything about that?
No, I mean it happens quite a bit. Every time the ISS goes through, I forgot what it's the name slipping my mind. It's a belt of radiation that surrounds the Earth.
Yeah,
Every
the Van
time
Allen.
the Van Allen belt. There you go. Every time it passes through there, next day computers have failed, need restarts, hard drives failed. So yeah.
Wow, that's really cool, and it makes so much sense. All right, Scott says, great, thanks to Zachary and Adam for awesome information, fun stuff of everybody else. Really enjoyed it from Shia. I enjoyed it as ever and always. Looking forward to doing things with you guys in future. For everybody else, let's wind this thing up. So this week's show, SNAJU, upcoming shows next week up in the air. The week after that, we're going to do globbing and a guest, Laura Tate, talking about running her own PC support operation. After that, we're going to talk about snake oil technology that being sold to people. Weird stuff I ran into lately. April 11th, a normal show, whatever the project's going to be. And April 18th, as far out as I've got planned, Greg Soul from Rocky Linux. And with that, how do we do this? We do this. I'm using different technology today. I don't know how to do this. I wish you all a great rest of the week. Take care of each other, take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, I will see you next week on ADRAMADA and the other platforms that I'm on. Until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eep, op, or... Now we do the awkward stare. There we go. Okay, we are not streaming.